is my shepherd. I shall not want. The engine on his bike came to a low roar as he slowed the metal beast to a creep. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Inside his dark helmet, his eyes carefully took in the ghetto streets. He leads me beside still waters. The streets have become a wasteland, inhabited by demons and have-nots. He restores my soul. The hunger in their belly and veins cause their eyes to watch him and their minds to think foolish thoughts. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Desperately, a woman searched through a pile of trash that littered the street because garbage trucks no longer came into the inner cities, looking for an empty blood bottle that had just a drop in it. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the death dealers clutched the cold steel that rested just within their jackets, receiving a false sense of security from it, as that sense that told them to survive became stimulated at the sight of him. I will fear no evil. Addicts shifted lifelessly from one alleyway to the other, their battered and bruised bodies host to demons that craved blood. For thou art with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Empty blood bottles shattered underneath the meaty tires of the bike as he drove deeper into the darkness. His destination, the lion's den. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He felt the demons watching him, inspecting him, carefully calculating his demise. Through every stain and broken window, through every hollow hole that used to be a home, through every vessel that used to carry a soul, through the very heartbeat of these ghetto streets. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. The power had guided him here, the power that coursed through his very veins, caused the beast to fear him. They saw it, and they knew that their time had drawn near. This ancient power that formed the worlds, this power that took dirt and made flesh, this power whose breath made life. After many years, the Ancient of Days had brought him home. With shaking hands, the man pushed his glasses up on his nose as he hurried down the long hall that led to his master's office. Orion wasn't going to be happy with the news he had, and more than anything, he wished it was somebody else who could deliver this news to him. He clutched the walls as the building they were in began to shake violently as yet another earthquake hit. These quakes were happening one after the other now, and even though they had long since moved their establishments to their state-of-the-art underground facilities, it still did nothing to spare them from the earthquakes. Although down here they were protected from the fierce storms that also swept the land, leaving death and destruction in their wake. He quietly knocked twice on the highly polished mahogany doors. Enter. Orion's deep voice came from the other side. He inhaled as he opened the door. Orion stood staring at the view of the grassy mountains out the window, which really wasn't a view but a simulation of one. I have those reports, sir, the man said, pushing his glasses that kept slipping down his nose because of his sweat back up. And? Orion asked without looking away from the artificial view. The man exhaled. He's back. Last seen leading a caravan of about 400 refugees across Arizona. And the other one? Orion asked, this time turning to face the man, who visibly swallowed when he saw that Orion's eyes had begun to flash red. The man nodded. Yes. Yes, sir. He's back as well. Are they together? The man shook his head, glad to deliver some good news to his master. No, master. He was last seen in the Carolinas. Send for my sons. We need to act immediately. The little man swallowed again as his hand loosened his tie. Sir, it's just that... What? Orion yelled at him, his eyes now a full blazing red, no more flashing. There is still no word from Dala. He caught himself. His master hated the name his son had chosen for himself. Oriel, sir. He still has not reported back after going after Lion. And Lion? Orion asked. Still no word, sir. There is no way of knowing if he survived the flood. We don't have time to wait on Oriel. We need to hit that caravan now with everything we got. I don't care what it takes. It must be prevented from reaching its destination. The little man swallowed. Sir, its destination? He asked. Orion walked back to the window. If I had my guess, I would guess the Carolinas. I watched the woman race across the snow-covered field on the back of a big black horse. Her long black coat trailed the wind behind her, making her look as if she had a pair of black wings. Strapped to her back was a black staff. She looked back at the band of hooting men that chased after her. They yelled lewd things at her, one man saying that he was going to first choke her to death and then screw her cold dead body over and over again. But none of their remarks fazed her as she raced toward the big metal gate. She was amazing. Truly the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, which would explain the bloodlust in the eyes of the men who chased her. No doubt they had big plans for her if they caught her. That's her. That's the one they call Black Beauty. I looked down at the man Mad Max had brought to me. He had found him in an old run-down bar that surprisingly had not been ramshackled by the blood fiends, probably because those there had long since poisoned their blood with the alcohol they consumed daily. Judging from the way the man's face swelled, it looked like his liver would be the death of him. She don't look dangerous, I told him before looking back through the binoculars. She didn't look dangerous. The top of her black coat hugged her full breast and slim waist, revealing the kind of body that would easily drive a man to distraction. She wore a pair of black fitted pants underneath that hugged a very nice pair of hips. Well, don't you let that beauty fool you, man. She's a savage. Just watch. I looked at Ron over the little man who, from the smell of him having bathed in months, had. See, I didn't take too kindly to anybody wasting my time, because time was one of the things we didn't have to spare. Sensing the threat to his life, the man looked up from the beautiful woman in black and craned his neck to look way up at me. When he saw the frown on my face, he swallowed loudly. You know that if you are lying to me, I will kill you, I told him. He began to stammer. What? No, I'm not lying to you. What do I have to gain? Everybody around here fears Black Beauty. If word got out, I led you to her, she'll slit my throat herself. The man you looking for, the man who killed your wife, is in there, behind those walls, behind Black Beauty's walls. He shook his head. Look, you boys look real tough. Don't get me wrong. I'm afraid of you. I am. But I've been seeing Black Beauty destroy men like you. So trust me, boss. I ain't got no reason to lie. See for yourself. Frowning, I turned back to look at the woman, still galloping on her horse toward the gate of her compound. Right then, a group of blood fiends came from the trees in front of her, running towards her. their hungry eyes bright and their throats thirsty for her blood. She looked back at the men who were now only feet away from her. Their vehicles, although barely put together, were still faster than her horse. When she turned around to face forward, she had a wicked smile on her face. Seconds later, she flipped off the back of her horse, which kept galloping just as a missile passed right over its head where she had just been sitting, to hit the vehicle that was directly behind her, blowing it apart. Now on her feet, she sprinted fast toward the gate. She ran like a soldier, perfect form, her small feet in a pair of black boots that strapped all the way up her legs to her knees. Several more missiles shot out from somewhere behind the walls, taking out several more vehicles. A group of men exited the van with bats and machetes. She grabbed the staff from off her back and did quick work at eliminating the threat. Her moves were fluent, and she dodged their clumsy swings with their weapons to deliver deadly blows with her staff. She ducked down just as a machete came at her head from the back, while twirling the staff over her head to quickly eliminate the threat at her back. Another man charged from her front, and she brought her legs straight up in the air like a ballerina dancer before bringing her heel down hard on his head, laying him low in the snow. One of the blood fiends had reached her. She quickly went down in a slide, taking his feet from under him, before she came down with the blade embedding it in his heart. A big man from the gang that was chasing her charged her. She jumped up in the air and wrapped her legs around his neck, going back into a backflip, taking his big body with her, breaking his neck. Then she was back on her feet, pumping her legs as quickly as she could, covering the distance to the gate. But right then, several more blood fiends ran from the trees, their hunger for her blood very real. "Now!" she yelled, and the gate raised just slightly. Somehow she ended up sliding on her back on top of the snow and using her feet as a windmill, laying out the two blood fiends that were now trying to get under the gate, while sliding underneath it herself. As soon as she was under, the heavy metal gate fell, locking out the fiends that were now coming in droves, hungry for blood. When they saw that their target had gotten away, their attention turned toward the group of men that had been chasing the woman in black, who quickly got back in their pieced together vehicles and retreated. What I tell you? See? She's beautiful. So beautiful it make your eyes hurt to look at her. But she is deadly as a cobra snake. You mark my words. He looked around at me and my 7 warriors. No offense, boss, but ain't nobody ever been able to breach those walls. And trust me, many have tried and ended up fooled for those fiends down there. If I were you boys, I would just pray for my wife's poor soul and then make my way on down the road. Beat it, I told him, before turning back to study the structure of the walls in my binoculars. Mad Max snatched the man who was getting ready to say something else up off his feet and away from me. Once he was gone, Mark Thomas set his computer down on a tree stump next to me. The little smelly guy may have been right about what he said. I recognize government training anywhere. So, I decided to do a little digging. I ran Black Beauty through the CIA employee roster. Of course, there was nothing on top. So, I went a little deeper. And look at this. He turned his computer around so that I could see. On the screen was the rarest face I had ever seen. It was not possible for someone to have her looks. In the old world, modeling agencies would have tried to beat down her door. Her coffee-colored skin was flawless. Above high cheekbones were a pair of eyes that can cast one in their spell for very easily. Her eyebrows had a natural arch to them that made her eyes look sultry. She had a pouty mouth with pretty full lips. but there was a hard look in those beautiful eyes. Truly the eyes of a killer. I recognized them well. Deborah Jones, code name Black Beauty, Mark Thomas continued. Brought in by handler Baxter Jones, code name Flyer. It says here that she was a level 4 operative until her and her handler went MIA a year before the flare hit. Rob quietly whistled through his teeth. Level 4? That's impressive for such a little thing. Mark Thomas nodded, pushing his glasses back up on his freckled face. His pale cheeks flushed red from the cold. Yeah, and get this. There is a $10 million bounty on her head. They want her back, boys. They want her back alive. Oh yeah? 10 mil? That got to be attracting all the players, Mad Max said, looking at the compound through his own binoculars. I didn't care about any of that. The only thing that mattered to me was getting these survivors inside those walls tonight and revenging my wife's death. She was murdered for a necklace that she had gone against my will in war, although I warned her not to. The man who murdered my wife had joined our caravan a few days ago when we first made our way into this town. He watched my wife finger that necklace and waited until I was gone and slipped into my tents. When he tried to take it from her, she fought. She didn't give it to him, so he stabbed her in the stomach and took it anyway. Several people saw him run out of the camp. Now, don't get me wrong. There was no love lost between my wife and I. However, he took her life in front of my 2-year-old daughter, who was traumatized by it. And for that, he had to die. See, I didn't allow myself to get close to anyone. There was no one with me that I could not walk away from if I needed to. Not even Yafa, my daughter. I was here to do Yah's will, nothing more. I closed my eyes trying to fade out my last images of the lion's den, abandoned and home for blood fiends. What had happened to my parents, my little sisters? Were they dead? Did they survive the flare? If only I had controlled my emotions so many years ago, I would have still been there for them. I clenched my fists as I forced those thoughts out of my head. If they were dead, then they were better off than us that was left here in this wasteland. And if Yah be merciful, He will let me find my own death after I finish what it was He had for me to do, which was to get these survivors east. As my men pondered over the best way to breach the walls, I tuned them out, listening instead to those inside the walls, sorting through conversations before I zoned in on one. This latch here won't hold up much longer, one male voice said. Just do the best you can. I'll talk to thee about getting it replaced. Yeah, but what if Turk and his gang of thugs come back? They can get through this latch here very easily. I zoomed in close with my binoculars, looking at mouths to try to find that conversation. Look, nobody even know about this tunnel, and I'm sure this latch will hold up through the night until we can get Bill over here to take a look at it tomorrow. Found them. Back east wall. We going tonight. I spoke. My men instantly ended their talk. Secure the camp, I told them, as I continued to watch the compound through my binoculars. It was very impressive. Now I knew why Yah had led us here. The compound in itself was about the size of 2 football fields, surrounded on 2 sides by the mountains, which was a great defense because it left only the east gate and the south gate exposed. However, the metal gates stood about 20 feet tall and would hold, but the number of blood fiends were increasing daily, and that gate, as impressive as it was, would not hold for long. We would stay here until Yah showed me it was time to leave. In the middle of the compound was a 10-story building that looked like it used to be a storage building or something, but was now being used as living space for the small group of people. Several others made makeshift buildings that they had built out of recycled material. Each building had solar panels on the top and the sides, which would explain the electricity. One of the buildings looked like it was used for a schoolhouse, because there were about 20 or so children sitting under the tarp. Another one looked like it was used for maybe a blacksmith. Way in the back truly was the gem of the place, and probably the reason it suffered so many attacks. A gasoline truck. See, they tried their best to hide it, but by them being in a valley, there was no way they could hide it completely. Deborah, codenamed Black Beauty, had skills. There was no questioning that. But the fact that I was sitting up here looking down at her operation showed where she was lacking. But I wouldn't take nothing from her. Somehow, they had managed to build them a small community, still trying to hold on to the way things used to be before the flare hit.